How is everybody? Hi. Hi. Good. I'll try to talk loud. And that's one thing. If you don't hear me or if I'm talking too fast, just say so. Yeah. So my name is Christy Lamoureux. I live in Lakeville. I'm an audiologist, and I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about hearing loss and what you can do about it. Okay. So I live in Lakeville. I've grown up in Lakeville. These are my two little guys, Jason and Thomas, big Red Sox fans. I have a business where I'm a traveling audiologist, where I go into homes and to different facilities and do hearing tests and hearing services. And I also work at Tufts Medical Center twice a week in Boston. Okay. So just a few stats. Hearing loss is actually more common than you think. About 38 million Americans have hearing loss, and it's the third most common problem in the U.S. And by 65, 1 in 3 of us will generally have hearing loss. So not everyone wants to do something about it, but it is pretty common. So what are some signs of hearing loss? What are either a loved one you have or signs that you think that you may have some trouble hearing? Or where are some trouble or where are places you may have difficulty hearing? Is anyone? Yep.
Telephone.
Telephone, yep.
Movies on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Just the movies. The rest of it's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's the movies.
And sometimes movies have music in the background, or they talk really fast,
Exactly.
or they have an accent, and that can be hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Loud.
Yeah.
Yep. So sometimes you may find you're making the volume louder, but sometimes you make it louder and it doesn't really make it clearer. It just makes it harder to hear. So that can be a sign. Fast speech or those with accents. I even find, I don't have hearing loss, but I get a phone call sometimes and it's from a different country or has an accent, and it's very hard. When you can't see someone's face, it can be really difficult to hear. So the phone can be hard. In noisy environments, does anyone find if they're in a restaurant it's harder to hear than at home? So that can be a sign. Ringing in the ear, sometimes people, it's called tinnitus, or they'll have ringing in their ears, and that can sometimes be an early sign of hearing loss. I don't know if anyone has any of that.
Isn't that a sign of medication also?
It can also be that, yep. It could be a few different things for ringing. So that's why if there is ringing, usually you want to have a doctor check and see what the reason is. Yep. Telephone we talked about. Feeling as if others are mumbling. Sometimes when there's hearing loss, we can hear what someone's saying, but the clarity or that it's not as clear as it used to be. So that can be a sign as well. And like I said, hear but don't understand. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the ear so we understand what hearing loss is and where it happens. So we all see, this is the part everyone sees. You all see the ear. So you have 3 parts of your ear. You have your outer ear, your middle ear, and your inner ear. Your outer ear is where all the wax, there's your ear canal here, and that's where there can be wax. So sometimes people can have a lot of wax in their ears, and that can cause some hearing loss. That's usually a pretty easy fix. Just clean your ears, and you're back to where you were. In your middle ear, this is the area here. This connects down to your throat. So if especially in children, if they have a lot of colds, well, that fluid can sometimes leak into their ears and then get stuck, and that can cause a hearing loss as well. Sometimes if kids have a lot of ear infections, they need help by a doctor to clear that fluid out. So that's one way you can get hearing loss. And in your inner ear here, this connects to your hearing nerve, and that's where your balance is in your body. And so in your inner ear, that's where we find more of a permanent hearing loss. And if there's damage to your ear from noise or different things like that. So majority of people, as they get older, the hearing loss is in your inner ear here. So kind of a brief understanding of what that is. So there's different types of hearing loss. When we do a hearing test, we'll be able to tell what type you have, if you have it. So there's conductive hearing loss that I talked about, and that can be caused by either just the sound can't get through. Either there's earwax in your ear, or you have an ear infection, or you're in an airplane. Everyone go in an airplane and your ears feel really blocked. That's a temporary type of hearing loss because you can't equalize that pressure in your ear. So that's a conductive type of hearing loss, and that's usually treatable. It doesn't last for too long. sensory neural type of hearing loss is the most common, and that's what's most common as we age. That's a type that we usually will get. And it occurs, like I said, in your inner ear, and it affects how clear speech is to you. So, like I said, you can hear, but it's just not very clear. And the causes of that, there's different causes. Sometimes it can be family history. If your parents had hearing loss and your brothers and sisters have hearing loss, there could be a genetic reason why you're getting hearing loss. Some can be noise exposure. If you've worked in a loud environment, if you were in the military, things like that. If you're around loud noise a lot, over time that will damage your hearing. And usually this type of hearing loss is not reversible. Usually it does stay. Aging, like we talked about, and certain medications can affect your hearing. A lot of times we monitor patients that are going through chemotherapy because the chemotherapy can affect their hearing. So certain medications are very strong and can do that. But the good thing is that a lot of nerve hearing loss can be treated with hearing aids. I know that word, no one wants to talk about hearing aids. But a lot of the times they can be treated, and they have changed. Hearing aids have changed a lot, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. And then you can have a combo of both type of hearing loss. You get the jackpot, and sometimes you will get that hearing loss, but it's not as common. So has anyone ever gone to an audiologist and had a hearing test? Have you done that before? So when you go to see an audiologist, they'll chart your hearing test results on a graph that kind of looks like this. And there's different degrees of hearing loss. It can go from mild down to profound. We test all different frequencies and see which sounds you can hear better than others. And then we base how we treat you based on the results on this chart. So the way we treat hearing loss, if it's a conductive loss, it's pretty simple. They just clear the wax out, or sometimes it's surgery if there's a lot of fluid, things like that. The nerve hearing loss generally is treated by hearing aids or different assistive devices. Has anyone ever tried anything for the television or for the telephone to help them hear better? There's different devices you can get to make your TV louder for you and not everyone in the room. So there's different headphones and things like that you can get that make it a little easier to hear. So there's a few options out there. So hearing aids, does anyone have hearing aids, or has anyone tried? Okay. So hearing aids have changed a lot. They're not the gigantic hearing aids that you used to see. I have a couple little demos you can look and see. So they've gotten a lot smaller, and you can get a lot more power into them than they used to be able to. Yep, so the hearing aids, some that I put out there, those are the ones that go behind your ears, and those have become a lot more popular because there's a thin tube that goes into your ear. You may not, I have actually one in my ear right now. May not have noticed. So they're just really small, and they're really hidden. You really don't see them at all. And so many people have asked, I want to wear hearing aids, but I don't want this gigantic thing in my ear. So they've made them so they're a lot more comfortable and a lot smaller, and you can get a lot of power into smaller hearing aids. So everyone's hearing loss is different, and so not every hearing aid works for every person, but they have changed a lot for the better. And then I'm sure you've also seen the ones that go in the ear. So there's different features of hearing aids. Hearing aids are all programmed through a computer. So you take your specific hearing loss, and then they're programmed for you. So you couldn't take someone else's hearing aid and put it on your ear because it wouldn't fit properly. And it wouldn't sound properly. So they're all programmed through a computer. They're all like mini computers where you don't have to touch them anymore. They adjust themselves. So if you go into a noisy environment, the hearing aid turns itself down. If you go somewhere where you want to listen to who's in front of you, it'll turn and focus on who's in front of you. So you don't have to touch them anymore, which is great. You can control them if you want with remote controls, but you don't have to, so which is very nice. A lot of them are wireless, so you can actually talk. You can talk through your cell phone through your hearing aids. So you can hear the hearing aids you can hear someone talking through your hearing aids when you're talking on the phone. You can hear your TV through the hearing aids. So they've changed a lot where you can, you don't have to take out your hearing aid to talk on the phone or take them out to listen on the TV. There's a lot of things you can do. A lot of them are rechargeable now. So at the end of the day, you just put them in a little charger instead of changing the batteries, which is great. I have a lot of patients that have a hard time with the batteries because they're so small. So this is a great newer thing that's happened where you don't have to take the batteries out. And then some are now waterproof. They've just come out within the past few months. There's a waterproof hearing aid where you can go swimming and take a shower and you don't have to take it out, which is nice, especially for kids because kids obviously love to swim. So they'd have to take out their hearing aids before they go in the pool and they can't hear their friends, but now they can swim with them. So everyone asks me this, hearing aids, do they help? My friend has one and it sits in the drawer. That's what everyone tells me. So many cases hearing aids do help, but it's important to know that everyone's hearing loss is different. Hearing aids work great for some people, but not always for everyone. So everyone's hearing loss is very different. And when we test your hearing, we do certain tests to see if you're a good candidate for a hearing aid. If you're not a good candidate, we're not going to recommend a hearing aid. It's all based on your hearing loss and certain results you get on a test. So, you know, if it didn't work for your friend, it doesn't always necessarily mean it won't work for you. But that's why it's good to see an audiologist, and they can tell you if you're a good candidate or not. And like I said, specific tests are done to see if you are a candidate or not. Okay. And another thing to remember with hearing aids is that it's the law in Massachusetts that you have a 30-day trial period with hearing aids. So you purchase them, but if after 30 days, if you're not happy, you can return them and get most of your money back. It doesn't matter where you go. So just keep that in the back of your mind that a lot of people think they buy them and they say, oh, I'm stuck. But you can return them after, it's usually a month to a month and a half. You have kind of a leeway there. So keep that in the back of your mind. So assistive devices that we talked about, for the TV, these are little headphones you can use for the TV. So you can make the TV volume as loud as you want in your headphones, and then in the room, the volume is lower. So if your spouse has normal hearing and you don't have to blast the TV and cause a little argument there. You can have it as loud as you want, and in the room it can be more comfortable. So those are options. There's devices, most churches and theaters have headphones that you can use if you have hearing loss. You just have to ask. And they have the room will be looped with a certain system, so you can wear headphones and you can hear either the priest or the minister or whatever's on stage. You can hear it nice and loud through your headphones. So most places will have it. Just ask whoever's in charge. You can try that. Then there's other devices like this is an alarm clock that shakes the bed if you can't hear your alarm clock. And there's a lot of things out there. And then sometimes if there's real severe hearing loss, we can put in telephones that will blink so you can see if the phone is ringing, or if the smoke alarm or doorbell goes off, it will blink in cases of more severe loss. So a lot of things out there. So these are just some strategies that you can use if you are having a difficult time hearing. So the best thing to do is face the person you want to hear. We get a lot of information from your face. So if you're in a noisy environment, really try to look at that person you want to hear. If I turn my back and I start talking at the wall, it's much harder to hear me. So face that person. Try not to have a conversation from 2 rooms away with a family member. It's very frustrating. Even with normal hearing, it's hard to hear. So try to be in the same room as that person. If the television is on, turn the TV down if you're going to have a conversation. Little things like that. Let's see. Also, gain your attention. If your spouse has difficulty hearing, tap them on the shoulder. Let them know you're going to talk to them before just talking behind them, and then they can't hear, and then it gets frustrating and like that. So little things like that can help. And also closed captioning. Does anyone ever use closed captioning on their TV? Any TV after 1985 will have the closed captioning, and that's when the words are on the bottom. Try that. It makes a big difference because if you miss a word, about 2 seconds later, you'll see it go across the bottom. So that can help as well. Protecting your hearing. If you do already have hearing loss, your hearing will actually progress faster if it's exposed to noise or is loud noises where it can be damaging. So if you're doing yard work, going to louder concerts, things like that, try to protect your hearing or stay away from those environments. You know, every once in a while it's okay, but if you're always doing yard work or things like that, wear some earplugs. Some classes you see at the gym or at the Y, you hear them blasting as they're, try to protect your hearing in those classes. Like I said, once in a while it's okay, but if you're doing that every week, it really can have a negative effect on your hearing. Especially if you already have hearing loss or damage to your ears, it'll actually progress faster. So just be cautious of that, okay? There are noise-reducing earphones if you wanted to buy earphones for your music. There's some earphones that actually reduce noise around you, and those are the best, especially if you have hearing loss, because you don't have to make them as loud to hear them if you're in a noisier environment. So, you know, any store you go to, you'll see that some are called noise-reducing earphones, and try those. Okay. So if you decide you want to get your hearing checked, stay for the screening. That's one way. Or talk to your doctor, and they can refer you to an audiologist. An audiologist is someone that has a little bit more medical training in hearing and looks at your overall hearing health care. So if you are going to go to a doctor or get your hearing checked, try to make sure it's an audiologist. Generally, hearing test takes about an hour. They have you listen to tones. They have you repeat back words and see how clear speech is to you. And then they'll go over different options to help you hear better, whether it's hearing aids or whether it's different strategies or different devices that can help you hear. And like I said, you know, not everyone is a candidate for those devices, but they'll go over what will work for you. Another thing to check is that if you do decide you want to get hearing aids, check with your insurance company. Unfortunately, most insurance companies don't cover hearing aids, but some of them will have a small stipend, so it's worth checking. Medicare doesn't cover anything. Certain state, if you worked for the state, you have like a GIC insurance, they actually are the best for hearing aids. They cover, I believe, $1,700 every 2 years. So that's the best. If you do have that, that's great. Some will have a small amount, $500 or so, not small, but small compared to the cost. So it's worth checking and seeing because you never know. Go into the home and bring my system and can do the whole hearing test, do speech testing, do tone testing, and then based on the results, recommend what is recommended for the hearing loss. Mm-hmm. And then if someone decides to do hearing aids, it can all be programmed through my computer here, and I can fit them and follow up and do different tests to make sure they're working well and all that. So it's all through the computer. So you can come and go to the home, or some people have me go to their work. Wherever. They're more educated now, the companies, about hearing protection, but before it wasn't an issue. So unfortunately, a lot of people have hearing loss because of that. So generally, when there's hearing loss caused by noise damage and by aging, it's usually the higher pitches that are affected. So generally, we lose the ability to hear higher pitch sounds first. It kind of is a slope. Okay. So it's something that, you know, if you want to, it's something you probably should follow up and get more of an in-depth test to see exactly where you're hearing. Mm-hmm. But different consonant sounds like S, F, T, H, those are higher pitched. So if you're talking to someone or listening, you probably could hear them, but you may miss part of what's said.
Yes, that's what I have done.
Mm-hmm. So you know they're talking to you.
Exactly.
But you're saying, because if you miss those subtle consonant sounds, it misses the meaning, changes the meaning.